श्री गुरुभ्यो नमस्कार। या देवी सर्वभूतेषु विद्यारूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः। Saluting the all-pervading, omnipresent, all possible, all protective Mother of the Universe, Sri Mata, for always her kind blessings upon all her children, all of us, especially her children with art and music. We seek the holy blessings of Ma Shri Mata. And ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to one and all of you. And Sri Sai Kendra Tumakuru deems it a highest honor to host this webinar, a thought-inspiring one, SANKATHA, a conversation with internationally acclaimed male dancers, an initiative of RASAGRAAHI. On the very outset, on this auspicious Friday evening, we have one of the most sought after international male dancers, Dr. Parimal Phadke, sir, on board. A respectful welcome to you, sir. Hearty welcome to you. My namaskars and welcome to our very versatile captain, Vidwan Sagar Tumakuru, who is an ace dancer, nattuvanar, singer, architect, and whatnot. A hearty welcome to you, sir.
Thank you,
I
ma'am.
take this moment of honor to welcome our respected audience members who always stand very inspirational and very motivating to all of us at Rasagraahi, at Sri Sai Ramanatya Kendra, each time motivating us to be better and better. A respectful welcome to all of you, dear audience members. This evening, too, we shall be inspired with many, many thoughts about art and beyond. Without further delay, I now take this great pleasure in talking about all the profound sadhana of this consummate artist, Dr. Parimal Phadke. What to say first, what not to say is my confusion because he is such a complete personality. He has touched all horizons of the art form, and I am so greatly delighted that I've been given this opportunity to talk about him. I was reading his bio, and what caught my attention was his dance breathes life, and his life breathes dance. Is something very, very catchy, something very captivating, and we wish that Mother Natyadi Devata blesses him and all other artists the same way and better to better ourselves. Parimal Phadke sir, it's indeed my honor to talk about your very profound sadhana. Ladies and gentlemen, he is an ace Bharatanatyam performer and an educator, lecturer in dance for postgraduate and graduate students of Bharatanatyam at the Lalita Kala Kendra, University of Pune. He is an empaneled guru for postgraduate and graduate students of Bharatanatyam at the Center for Performing Arts, University of Pune. He is empaneled as a performing artist under the established category of ICCR, which is not an easy thing to achieve. He's been shortlisted as an artistic director by ICCR. He is the visiting faculty to Alliance for Global Education. He has received dance training from illustrious gurus like Guru Rema Shrikant, Guru Vasanti Subramaniam, Guru Dr. Sucheta Chapekar, and presently pursuing under Guru Dr. Jayashree Rajagopalan, Mumbai, since 2000. He has also been trained in Carnatic music. He has learned Carnatic music from Guru Rema Parthasarathi, Guru Srilata Sundararajan, and Guru Rajalakshmi Pichumani, Guru Lata Raman. He is presently learning under Guru Gayatri Sundareshan. Trained in rhythm intricacies from Shankar Narayan, sir, from Mumbai. He has learned the language of Tamil under Gayatri Kandaswamy Madam. He has got a certificate course in Samskrita from Department of Sanskrit, University of Pune, which catches my attention specially. He has received his formal education as a holder of BCom, that's a bachelor's degree in commerce, an MA holder and a PhD holder in dance, Bharatanatyam. He's got his postgraduate diploma in television production from Xavier's Institute of Communications, Mumbai. He has performed in hundreds and hundreds of very prestigious occasions and stages where he has received international acclaim for the same. Some of the must mentionables are his performance in Divya Vivaha, curated by the very well known Usha R.K. Madam at Bangalore, at Namma Bengaluru, is performed for Navarasa Shiva, once again conceptualized by Usha R.K. Madam in Kathak Kendra, New Delhi, performed in Divya trilogy of Usha Madam again, is performed in Bangalore for Shreyas Yoga Retreat, is performed in Viswanath Chiralia, Assam for festival organized by Sangeet Nataka Academy. He is performed in Divya Trayam organized by Usha Madam. In 2016, he is performed at the Nayaka Festival, Pune. He is performed at the first national seminar on styles of dance, Pune. He has performed in Bharat Nritya Utsav at Swami Parthasarathi Swami Sabha, Chennai. Svaravarsha festival organized by PMPC Pune. Ramayana, a production of Santa Seva Sangha. Panorama, based on the compositions of vocalist Ashwini Bhide Deshpande. A solo Bharatanatyam presentation at the 72nd Aundh Festival. Kinkini Festivals at Mumbai. Program for British Council Pune on their 10th anniversary. NCPA for the Horizon series of ICCR, Solo Bharatanatyam at the Shanivar Vada Festival, Pune, solo performance in the Pune Festival, performed at the Natyanjali Festival at Tiruvayur, Kumbakonam, Nagampattinam, with the troupe of his guru, Jayashree Rajgopalanji, and for the Grand Festival, Chennai. In 2002, he is performed at the 15th Yuva Sangeeta Mahotsava, organized by the Department of Culture, Government of Andhra Pradesh, and South Central Zone Culture Center, Nagpur. Many international performances also Parimal sir has given, among which his performances in Sri Lanka, in USA for Natyarpana, the Gender Queries, international dance production, The Pulse at Barcelona, Spain, performance of Urban Dance Scape selected for International Dance Festival and a World Dance Symposium held in Segovia, Spain, conceived and directed Rutu, a 30-minute dance production weaving Bharatanatyam, Kathak, and contemporary dance styles for Armed India Festival, France, performance tour in USA. He has toured USA extensively with his great performances with Shambhavi Dandekar for Nritya Sangam, Rag Panorama for the Armed India Festival in Brittany, France, International Dance Festival at Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, performance in the Festival of India and Russia at Moscow and St. Petersburg. You can see my speed of delivering this. Nritya Sangam toured in Muscat and China, performed all over US in 20 cities with Kathak dance use, Shambhavi Dandekar, with other dance production, Nritya Sangam, New Avatar, all over the US, performed all over US with Kathak dance use, Shambhavi Wheels with innovative dance production Nritya Sangam, which blends Kathak and Bharatanatyam, performed in the International Dance Painting Project, The Sky Over My House of NICP, NIAP, Nikunja Interdisciplinary Art Project, Geneva, Switzerland, and he is selected amongst the 14 dancers from the world, and we are in conversation with him is something to be proud of ourselves. He has also performed in international dance festivals, the Asian Festival in Columbus, Ohio, performed duet at the Houston International Festival, Texas, performed at the Asian Festival in Columbus, Ohio, and he has conducted many workshops. And the list is quite big, and I'm afraid that he may get irritated. List is quite
We
extensive.
can trim it.
Yeah.
We can trim it.
No, he's performed, he's taken workshops, he's taught many aspiring students across the globe. And many awards and scholarships have gained respect by being conferred onto him. Guru Rohini Bhate Yuva Puraskar from Pune Municipal Corporation, received Kala Tirtha Puraskar from Bell Entertainment, received citation from Bhangia Samsad Pune for his noble contribution to the field of dance in Pune. He's been awarded with the Yuva Nritya Puraskar by Shiva Shahi Mitra Mandal. He is selected by the University Grants Commission for JRF, the Junior Research Fellowship, for further research in dance. on the basis of the National Eligibility Test. He has received scholarship from Ministry of Culture for studying dance. He is honored with the national title Singaramani for dance by Sur Singar Samsad Mumbai. He is the topper in MA exams at the University of Pune. He's got first prize and Pandit Vishnu Digambar Paluskar Puraskar at the Sharada Sangeeta Vidyalaya, Mumbai. He's won the junior scholarship for dance. And what do I say, what do I not say? From Bhattande Sangeet Mahavidyalaya,
Bhatkande, right, in Lucknow.
Oh, Bhattande. Okay, so thank you. And many artistic productions mark his colorful persona, among which the Navarachana, Shodh, Kavyanjali, Kaleidoscope, a nod to the past, present, and future of dance, intercollaborative performance of Nritya Sangam, new avatar with Kathak dancer Shambhavi Dandekar, as I already told you, choreographed, scripted, and produced an innovative dance ensemble. The production, titled Swarnim, on the theme of gold, in 2005, is collaborated with Kathak exponent Shambhavi Mapke for our production titled for his production Nritya Sangam that blends Kathak and Bharatanatyam, and many dance productions for television, including the direction and choreography. Of course, the conceptualization of Shakti, a node to the female energy, telecast for regional channel SAM. He has presented many research papers. He has done profound research and research projects have also embraced him, many of them negotiating Natya Shastra with the contemporary classical dance students. A pedagogical perspective at the International Conference on Language, Literature and Culture at Pune. He has presented a paper, The Mudappacharis and its link with the footwork, technique of Bharatanatyam, presented at the World Samskrita Conference, Vancouver, Canada. He has presented a paper, The Desi Lasyangas and Item Numbers of Bollywood at National Seminar, Department of Samskrita, SPPU, Pune. He presented a paper on the gender in Bharatanatyam at ICNCC in 2017. Presented a paper, The Space for Pedagogy and Performance in the City, at the World Dance Symposium held in Segovia, Spain. Presented a paper on the concept of Nayaka for Bharatanatyam, a paper on the impact of digital media on the pedagogy of Bharatanatyam, the concept of Jatis in Bharatanatyam, concept of Nayaka in Bharatanatyam, in as per Natya Shastra and post Natya Shastra texts, a paper on Nayaka at the first International Conference of Bharatanatyam held at Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, hosted by Malaysia Bharatanatyam Association, presented a paper entitled Dancing the Literature at International Conference on Language, Literature and Culture organized by IACE, and he's got international residency. He's been selected for the Yellow Line Project, a 3-week residency program at New Delhi, resulting in a short film on site, specific choreography. He has released many e-books entitled The Concept and the Core of Alaripu, Guide to Bharatanatyam Theory, Prarambhik, Praveshik Pratham on Kindle, released an e-book, Gandharva Deshika, Prarambhik and Praveshika Pratham on Kindle, released an e-book, Guide to Bharatanatyam Theory for Madhyama Prathama and Purna on Kindle. Many articles on dance he has written, and many articles in his appreciation have also been written. He's been teaching many students for competitions who have been great winners in various dance competitions, CCRT Scholarship, the Human Resource Young Artist Scholarship, Sur Singar Sansad, Balashri, Shanmugananda Sangeet Sabha, Sharada Sangeeta Vidyalaya, Swara Sandhana Samiti, Dadar Matunga Center competition, the Natyotsava Bharatanatyam reality dance show, and he's also has to his credit a DVD released, Nritya Sangam, a new avatar in the US. This is a very short bio of Dr. Parimal Phadke, and I have extensive information about him. But just fearing the time, I now keep the floor open to our very two inspiring gentlemen to enthrall all of us with their interesting conversation. Welcome to you on board again, sir, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Rupesh ma'am, for your duties of introducing such a great personality to all of us today. And welcome Dr. Parimal sir on board. And it's nice to talk to you, hailing from the cultural city in Maharashtra, the Pune, which has been known for its cultural significance. And it's been, I think you are one of the, star or the propagator of culture probably now in this era.
One of
Uh,
Pune, we should say.
yeah, so carrying on the legacy in various different ways. So thank you, sir. Thanks for accepting the invitation from Rasagrahi to be part of this conversation series of male dancers, Sankatha.
Thank you once again, Rupashi ji, for introducing me. And oh my God, what a task you've undertaken! I was expecting you could just have trimmed it in 5 lines and finished it up. But thank you once again for reading it in detail. And thank you, Sagar ji, for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts here.
Thank you, sir. Uh, Sir, hailing from a metropolitan city now, and this Pune has grown over the time, I think, very exponentially from your childhood to what you can see now. So, coming from such a now a cosmopolitan kind of a setup, almost a mini Mumbai sort of, or some, or probably in some time it might compete with Mumbai in terms of its area and things like that. Pune is growing too fast, and the whole world looks at Surat and Pune as two things which are growing urbanized so quickly. So in this kind of a scenario of quick rapid urbanization and modernization which is happening in Pune, you come up with pursuing classical art form, that too Bharatanatyam. How did it all begin, sir? So we want to know, how did you got attracted to this art form?
So, Sagar ji, you can just call me Parimal. It's absolutely fine. So, when I have somebody calling sir to me, I get into the role of a lecturer. I don't want to get into that. In the university, we are so used to getting to that. So, just call me Parimal. That makes it much more easy. Otherwise, it brings me into a different, realm altogether.
More.
So, yeah. So, I think I landed in Pune in 1998. So, it's not, though my native place is Pune, I have not brought up in Pune. My influential years were not spent in Pune, but they were spent in Baroda or Vadodara in Gujarat, and for a few years in between in Lucknow. So my first guru, Rama Shrikant, hails from Vadodara, and she's a senior disciple of Professor C.V. Chandrasekharji, who also was at that point of time in Vadodara itself. So 1980 to 86, I was in Vadodara, where I started my education in Bharatanatyam. And why my parents, especially my mother, put me into a dance class, because at the age of 3 or 2, I would just respond to music through actions, through body language. And it was very clear to her that I have got a natural response to rhythm and music and melody. And that natural response was through dance and nothing else. And I think that comes from my mother's side also, because uh, from my maternal side, most of them are arts inclined. They might not be artists, but most of them are arts inclined. And despite the fact that my mother comes from Satara, and Satara was not a big town like Pune or Mumbai at those days, but my grandfather was an owner of a cinema hall there. So the whole sanskaras of performing arts were in and around. So in the context of film or in the context of Indian classical music, because my grandfather was a connoisseur and or connoisseur of
You're not audible. Sorry to interrupt you. Hello, Parimal ji, am I audible? Am I audible now? No. I think you're not heard. You're not heard. We can't hear you. Yeah, now it is. Now it is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, I can.
The network seems to be good at my end. It's surprising because I was just cross checking whether I could see YouTube video or not. So the network seems to be very okay at my end. So I'm wondering what's the hitch here. And the iPad
Okay.
normally doesn't give me a problem here.
Never mind. So,
Yes.
yeah.
So I think
So you were talking about your influence from your maternal side for pursuing this art form, and you were lucky to have great gurus and mentors like CVC sir and his
yeah,
student
my guru of
who
course is
mentored
Rama
you.
Shrikant. So
Yeah.
right. So I think my mother took me to the closest dance class, which was her class at that point of time. And my journey into Bharatanatyam began in 1981, around 1981, 82. And that's how I continued my learning. We shifted to Lucknow because of my father's job, because he got transferred. And I used to come during summer vacations and winter vacations to Baroda again to continue my learning and go back. And to continue in Lucknow itself, I was also under the tutelage of Guru Vasanti Subramanyam, who was at Bhatkandi Music College. And finally, 98, before that, I finished my Arangetram in Vadodara between 95 and 98. I was at the hostel, and then we all shifted to Pune because that's our native place. I finished my master's under Guru Dr. Suchita Sapekar, and after my master's, I passed my national eligibility test for lecturership in master's final year itself. So my thesis, which was based on the concept of Angika from Bharata's times till now, got me interested into Dr. Padma Subramanian's style too, and I started learning under Dr. Jayashree Rajgopalan, who's her senior disciple.
Student.
But my core area of research has been the concept of Nayak, because since the time of Arangetram under my first Guru Rama Shrikant, I understood the fact that there are very few compositions, very handful of compositions for male dancers to represent their own gender. So my whole research was how I could come up with more available compositions, available compositions we have. It's very interesting to see in the last 10 years, so many books have been published, and we are unearthing more and more male-oriented compositions. But having said that, the number is still very less. So my whole research area was to create a template for Nayaka classifications, and also to create new lyric poems in language of Tamil, and also in Hindi and Marathi. If I could bring in as many languages as I could, I have only taken into consideration these three. And according to the template which I have created, I have had representative examples of those compositions.
That's a great intro. So I want to know, I mean, it's a very great choice that you have made to serve as a full-time faculty at one of the universities, and that to a premier university in Pune, Savitribai Phule University, which is well known for its courses, especially not technological and technical and other things, but also related to arts, culture, and historiography, and lot many things about archaeology and things like that. It's very interesting to see a lot of diverse courses which the university offers, and I think we are proud that you are part of such a great institute as a faculty. But what drove your mind towards entering into a formal mode of education of dancing, because we all get educated, do courses like MFAs and things like that, but we generally oriented towards running our own school and institutes and things like that. But making a decision to join as a full-time faculty, because it takes most of your time of the day, and also a lot of other different kind of a commitment, as I can see, maybe for documentation, teaching and things like that. Since both of us come from academic perspective, I know how much of time goes off teaching in documentation
Absolutely.
in university education. So
Absolutely.
how did you make this choice of being there?
Actually, I got employed in 2010. So my
Okay.
institution itself is my alma mater. That's I come from that institution itself. But
Institute.
I worked for a freelance as a freelancer for a period of I think almost 10 years. So it's not that I immediately got employed there. We all know that performing arts employment is a rarity. It just
Rarity. Yeah.
happens if you're really lucky. Otherwise, we all work as freelancers. What drove me towards academic education in dance was primarily because I had many questions while I was growing up with Bharatanatyam and understanding Margam more closely. I had several questions about the content. I had several questions about the structure. I had several questions about the context. And I think a master's or a bachelor's degree might not make you a great professional artist. That's the argument which mostly everybody gives. I think again is this okay? Is the network okay now?
Yeah, it's perfect now.
Yes. Okay. So I think the argument is that education or academics doesn't really make you an artist, and that to some certain extent might be true. But I also feel that if you want to go a bit deeper into whys and the where-offs of dance and why we dance the way we dance today, there are several questions which need to be answered when you are handling the form of Bharatanatyam, the content of Bharatanatyam, the choreography of Bharatanatyam. So I think if you want a lot of information and knowledge and analysis, uh, anytime an academic course helps you to do that. Otherwise, you might be practicing for 20 years, but probably your thought process might not mature beyond a certain level. And I'm not trying to put the freelance dancers into a scanner here. No, that's not my purpose here. What I'm actually trying to say that there are a bunch of us who like a lot of analysis, who like to get into the questions and who like to search for answers. And our creativity and performance is very connected internally with all these aspects. So I think that was my primary goal. But there was a lot of struggle in the context of deciding whether I really wanted to go for a master's or not.
Yeah.
Because the kind of Indian society we have, and for example, even the kind of society all over the world we have, performing arts professions are not something you can go after and really trust you to bring self-reliance as such. So I had secured my admission in mass communication, master's in mass communications, and I had also secured admission in master's in dance. It was my brother who said that since I had been pursuing dance for so long, it was the right time to also get an insight into these questions and theoretical insight and its relation with the practice. So if my brother wouldn't have guided me at that point of time, I think I would have just plainly gone to mass communications, because we are all scared of basic questions of survival in a country like India. You cannot really survive in probably in Europe or the West. That might not be the major question. People are used to being self-reliant at a very young age. But the structure of the society and the structure of education is such that we have to get on our feet. We have to get a job per se. We can't do a part-time job somewhere and also educate ourselves. That's not the system which we are brought up in. So the kind of structure which we are brought up in, that was my way out to go towards a mass communications degree. But my brother helped me to decide, and I went for the master's. Eventually, things started falling in. I passed my net. I started getting teaching opportunities by that time. But it was not an easy journey either, because despite the fact that I had got my junior research fellowship, I could not access it through my department, because I'm talking about the late 90s, where performing arts research in the context of administration and department was not really a very professional I should say, structure. And I had to forego that for reasons because I couldn't avail the fellowship due to all the lack of facilities. So I went for my course in television production by that time. And after I completed my postgraduate diploma, I was actually dreaming to be a scriptwriter because I didn't think that I would come back to dance. But every time I have observed myself going away from dance, dance pulls me back with triple force. And that happened because of the collaborative project with Shambhavi Dandekar, which is Nritya Sangam. And by the end of my television production course, I was already working on that collaboration. That proved a big hit, and it again brought me back in dance. And then things just changed. I got my job in 2010, and then I re-registered for my PhD, worked towards my PhD, which I got just a few years back. So it's a topsy-turvy journey. You have to be really very tenacious to really make it here, and there has to be a lot of parental support and family support, and also a lot of luck, because you might do so much, but if luck is not on your side at that particular time, it doesn't work. For example, initially when I first registered for my PhD, it didn't work out. So the luck was not really favoring me. So there are times when things work out and there are times when things don't, and you have to be really prepared for such kind of happening. But I think what is most important is you need to have a backup plan ready, which I always say and tell my students too. And this COVID lesson is teaching this the same thing, that you need a backup plan. You need a backup plan. You can't be doing one thing as a performing artist. You need something to fall back. And this pandemic has really tested us on that level.
Yeah, so I think that's a thing which you're telling, that your destiny was almost there, and so probably that would have also played a role for you to be there as a faculty over there. Um, Being educated in a Guru Shishya Parampara in a very informal mode, getting into 2 years masters is a very small time which we get to go to college, and the motto at that time for us in that age will probably be to get a degree of masters and things like that. But once you start teaching in a university college with all the targets and things like that, how would you see the difference between teaching, like, apart from the academic wing or perspective, to in a strictly academic perspective? Here also we will have targets, like if there are some Gandharva examinations, yearly targets and things like that will be there, but still it's not a daily routine and a ritual for students to even have, and then attendance and things like that in a formal education mode. And learning is one good experience, so that we get our body also conditioned for 2 years to perform and learn a little lot. But to teach is a very different challenge, because very few universities are offering even masters and bachelor's courses and research in dance. So I think the answer from you would be very interesting on this.
Right. So I think when I was working as a freelancer and I was also teaching, the age group which I was dealing with mostly between, I should say, 7 and 20, 7 and 25, 7 and 20. So the content which you are actually the content which you are teaching them is mostly compositions of Bharatanatyam Margam, and you are doing your own productions, and that is happening. But I think what changes when you are a lecturer and when you are a professor in a department of performing arts is you need to justify why certain elements or components of practice exist and what is the theory behind it. I think that really was enriching for me as a dancer, and I realized that that job helped me grow, because I remember when I joined as a lecturer at my own department, many of my colleagues and many of the seniors told me that, oh, now you're going to be involved in a job, now that's the end of your performing career, now nothing is going to happen. And I was wondering, is that true? Does that really happen? But I think it all depends upon you, how you benefit, and how you, I should say, focus on what exactly you're looking out for, and how you understand the university system, how you understand the education system, and how you understand the students also. So I think in the 10 years, in the decade of Pune University, we have successfully come up with some very good seminars and conferences some of which are very much there on YouTube. For example, in 2013, we organized the national seminar on dance criticism, and we had 5 sections. We had the critics, we had the dancers, we had the editors, we had the audience. So four sections. So we were looking at dance criticism from all these angles. Or just during the pandemic itself, in March, I think just now, in March 2021, under the guidance of Guru Shama Bhate, we had a very interesting topic of looking at sensuality, erotica, and vulgarity in art. And we were trying to look at how these values are subjective or not subjective. How do they get defined? So I think what happened because of teaching in a university structure is you are obviously dealing with a slightly higher level in the context of qualitative thinking, qualitative analysis. And that brings a very different kind of a change. You understand the art form. At least in my case, I've realized that I understood the components and its interrelationships, the political, the social context also, the cultural context also. So you start on a very different level, I should say. Whereas, as you mentioned, that when you're working as a freelancer and you're sticking to only the age group of 8 to 25, probably your quest for teaching only extends till the Gandharva exams, or on a qualitative level, the content to be provided for them. Because ultimately some of them might really be interested to work towards a full-time career. 80% of time they are doing their parallel careers, which is a fact. That's the ground reality. And then they are just coming twice a week or thrice a week. And you need to, if they're not giving exams, then they just need knowledge, or they just want to dance. So it's a very functional kind of a area, or it's a functional kind of a perspective you're looking at. So I think in an academic perspective, suddenly you get upgraded to a 5G instead of a 2G or a 3G, if I have to really say it that way. So you are really looking at it in a very genuine and a serious fashion, and you are addressing certain issues in front of students. You're discussing day in, day out about it. And the students who have come for bachelor's, masters are also willing to do that, because they're not just here to get the certificate. They want to really work towards getting a bachelor's and master's. So I think on the level of thinking, on the level of insight, it brings a totally different kind of an approach. So while most of them still think that it doesn't really work beyond a limit, it will only make you a person with a degree, I sincerely feel that it makes you far more broad-minded in your perspective of looking at classical dance forms in general. And you start looking at aesthetics of classical dance or aesthetics of dance in general in a much more magnanimous manner rather than in a rigid way. For example, when I look back, I realized that probably before my job, when I would look at other styles, I would have a spectacle of my own style and look at those styles. But I think when I joined at the Lalit Kala Kendra, automatically this interdisciplinary approach also helped me understanding that helped me in understanding the fact that if I'm supposed to look at Kathak, I'm supposed to look at Kathak through the lens of Kathak and not through the lens of Bharatanatyam, and vice versa. So now when I see this kind of a growth in terms of thinking, I have to credit and thank this job itself. And same applies to the changes which took place in my own content of handling Bharatanatyam. However, as you say, because it's a job, it takes a maximum chunk of the day, when otherwise if you're a freelancer, you're working in the morning, practicing in the morning. So I always have to juggle with that, because normally the dance clock, the dancing body's clock hours are morning. But once you're in a job, then you have to play with the morning and the evening, available evenings, and make sure your practice is done. So I think that is something which is a challenge, no doubt about it. And one thing also changed is that when I was working as a freelancer, I was not just doing solo. I was definitely indulging in a lot of group productions also. But I think after I joined at the university, I kind of understood that I won't be able to do everything. So I said, okay, then I'm not going to focus on group or ensemble productions. I'm going to focus on the job and my solo career. And of course, if ensemble productions come my way naturally, it's good. But it's not possible for me to actually create an ensemble production, because that requires a very bigger commitment in the context of time.
Correct.
I feel.
That's a great thing, and it's very critical to even. I mean, the point you made out that how do we manage the time quotient of a formal education mode? Because there is also a perception that once you go as a dance lecturer, you will be dancing for the whole day, but that's, I think, it's not the fact. So yeah,
Not at
so
all.
so I think we need to have our own practice time other than college hours, whether it is beat any subject. If there is a consultancy happening in any department, I think that is off the teaching hours and off the research hours, which we kind of do. And it's very noticeable that at a very nascent stage where the research, formal research in dance was in Indian map or in Indian subcontinent, you were one of them who pursued it. Because the earlier researches, what we can see from various different people, majority of them were exploratory, because our parampara itself is something which is oral. Traditions are mostly oral, and they were not this thing. And the textual traditions are in a different avenue together. Sometimes they mismatch. So. And they were mostly what I can say, exploratory manner kind of a research, which were given PhDs before. But as you rightly mentioned a couple of minutes before, nowadays the analytical mode of research is cropping up in the field of dance, and that's the call for the day. Because if you just want to explore it, I don't think so the scope is now limited to masters. So I'm going to explore this style, I'm going to research on this book and techniques in that book. That's kind of an exploratory research, stops at master's level now in good universities like the one which you are teaching. So analysis and analytical comprehensive looks, comparative analysis are like the call for the day. So what do you say that is there a development in the field of formal research in India, and will it still more gear up in future, or do you still feel that, because as you rightly said in the beginning, even for your research journey, you had a lot of hurdles? Because I can understand, because that point of time, availability of data and each and everything would have been a very great problem for you. But today we have this digital mode, and all the universities are open for this kind of research. So, what is your view on the future of dance research in India?
Hmm. That's a quite an interesting question also, because I realized that when I was doing my research, I don't think so much of it was available on the internet. Most of
Yeah.
it I had to access libraries, and especially Oriental Research Libraries. I'm a life member of Bhandarkar Oriental Research Center, so those were my places where I would go for primary sources of research during that time. Today, of course, students have an access to those texts online, which is like one of the biggest blessing. I think today you'll realize that a lot of interesting areas of research have come up. For example, we are questioning what is the real history of our classical dance forms, or we are going back to where does this whole concept of classical itself comes.
Come from.
So we are really getting to the fundamentals of aesthetics, I feel, and I think that's very interesting, and that's going to bring a new crop of researchers, a new crop of research itself, where we are really going to the roots of where this all started. That is one area. On the other hand, I feel a lot of it is also going to be based on contemporary changes in the classical dance scenario itself, and be it what kind of content the dancers are making a choice of today. How is social media influencing it? How is the camera technique influencing it? How is the perceiver looking at dance today? Is he looking at dance in the context of watching a screen, or is he actually looking at watching a live performance? So I feel we are definitely on the right track. I don't think so that we are going away from it. I'm just concerned about the fact, which I was concerned even 20 years back, that there is not much financial support to all the researchers. And that is why, when it comes to probably science, people from science background or people from other technology background, the whole methodology of funding is very well laid out. They have a legacy of it. That's not how it works for dance. And that is why the challenge to dancers has always been dual. That is, on one hand, they have to take care of their bread and butter, and then they have to do their research. So the
Correct.
focused duration of time which can lessen, it actually does not. It just spreads beyond a certain limit. And that is the, I feel, challenge to all the dancers who really plan to get into research as to how do you do that and still keep your performance alive, because ultimately most of the research areas which we choose, we are not going to be choosing topics which are frozen news in pieces, right? We're ultimately going to talk about performance in some way or the other. So researchers obviously are going to be performers. They're just not going to be writers there. And they are going to have their own performing going on too. So I think that is going to be the toughest challenge for all those researchers who plan to take PhD research, is how to balance all this. But I feel in the context of research in India, I think it's going in the right note. Whatever
Right.
latest research which I have come across has been very encouraging. Where not just encouraging, I feel really kind of, I'm at a lot of loss of words when I see the hard work and the kind of analysis which is going on in the context of textual study, in the context of history. So it really feels good that people are interested, but I think they are also equally challenged in the context of the situation as to how they are going to have this going on uh, even ahead. I think that is going to be something which we need to figure out, even as an education system.
I think I'll just take one more question on research, because I'm talking to a great scholar. So the one is about the data collection and yeah, I think data survey method, what we call in our research language, about these oral traditions. Are there any improvements on that because of this digital media and things like that? Um, because a lot of things are there, like, what comes through the parampara and oral traditions are too many, and I think that itself is a different avenue of documentation which is much required, parallelly to exploring the texts of dance and the textual traditions of dancing and things like that. So have you found any improvements in these kind of recordings? And then, because putting up and writing those, I think, is a huge task which is there with all of us as contemporary researchers of Indian dance today, is what I believe. So, are there any improvements in such documentations and techniques?
Again, I'll come back to again, I'll come back to the matter of funding. I'll just give you an example of Darshana Javeri, the legendary Manipuri dancer. And I
Yeah.
remember while talking to her, she was talking about her process of documentation. And she was funded by the Ford Foundation during 1970s, 80s to go through this whole process of documenting absolutely every aspect of the oral traditions. Now, she could do this because the Ford Foundation was there
Just funded.
behind her to do that. So again, we go back to the same thing, that the financials have to be really worked out, because ultimately, when you say documentation, you can't do without technology. You cannot do without processing. You cannot do without these elements. You are going to be documenting with technology, right? So all that requires certain kind of peace and calm, and that peace and calm can only be achieved if you're not worried, oh, will I get the funding to do that? Because ultimately the person who's going to do the oral documentation, he's not going to do just out of love. If he's going to be doing that, then the next question would be, who's going to help it in preserving it? Because again, we have issues when people do that out of love. What happens that over a period of 40, 50 years, it is in a really bad shape, because no agency or organization was there to take that and conserve it and to put it in a proper shape. So we are again coming back to the same question here, that probably we need to find out pathways to really focus the oral documentation in such a way that it does not get lost. But that's quite a tough challenge, I feel, for performing arts in general. I think all over the world, it's not
Yeah.
just India I would take into consideration. Having said that, I think the digital media comes as a fresh, uh, I think, a fresh lease, because the digital media is helping uh, in some ways to record whatever is happening. People are recording it through their stories or uploading their videos. But what is interesting to note, for example, I remember during my masters when we would have lecture from our guru, Dr. Suchita Sapekar, who described Kitapa Pillai style, and she would give examples of this. The whole reference point was her anecdotes.
this is how we did it, and etc. etc. Now, to see that just a few months back, I just stumbled upon this whole document. Released it, or it was there on Facebook. How it came across, I'm not sure, but I think Sangeet Natak Academy itself released it. Now that's the whole thing here. That this has to come in the public space. That whatever documented material is there needs to come in the public space. That's point number one. And point number two, I think the present generation and the past generation are doing a lot of activities to document this. For example, if I just take the example of your show itself, this also becomes like a data documenting resource, because 20 years down the line, if somebody wants to go back and do research on how so I think this show itself becomes an easy resource. Now, you might not really have done that through the angle of data documentation or data collection, but it actually serves that purpose. So the digital media is unusually helping us in doing that. And that's what the magic of digital media is, that accessibility. It is, you are making it accessible to everybody. There is kind of a universal opinion coming about what particular style is, a form is, content is, and there is discussion happening. I mean, there are new apps which are coming where people are actually wanting to discuss seriously. So that's something which we missed out in the pre-digital era. Because in the pre-digital era, there might be other researchers. There might be some research in Hyderabad, in Bangalore, in Kolkata, or in Delhi who would have wanted to work on similar lines. But we could not access each other. But the digital media makes it very easy to understand, oh, somebody is already doing this research and I must read what's happening. So I think it's a big, I think it's a new chapter opening up in that context, I feel.
That's an advantage, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, provided with all these things, one more extended question. I'm very sorry, because I'm very prompting to know something from you about this research field, because it is very rare to find even research papers being published on a regular basis in conferences and in journals, rather, I would say, about the dance and traditions. And you've been constantly into the process of doing journal publications. So how important is it for any dancer, like for us as a performer, as we do a study on an item and we start choreographing it, we get influenced and things like that, and we perform it on stage. And I think in the perspective of dance research or performing arts research, I think it's very important for us to even publish the articles. But is there the equal mileage for this research publications as the stage shows?
As stage shows. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I first are very important. International conference in Bharatanatyam opener, I would say, was when I my paper in. Am I visible? Is it okay?
Your voice is breaking.
Is my voice breaking? Is that okay now?
Now it is fine. Yeah.
Right. So I think an eye-opener was the World Sanskrit Conference, where I presented my paper on the concept of Nayaka. And there were other scholars too. There was Dr. Padmaja Suresh from Bangalore, who had also presented her paper. And now, what happens when you are in such conferences is you get to meet scholars from so many areas. And it is very interesting to see that you get to interact with them. You get to understand what and how they are pursuing certain research. And that, that if you're really a seeker for knowledge, and if you really have a quest to unearth, then you are the kind of person who are just suitable for research, which is why I also probably would like to share that I think I went towards research because it was an internal quest. There were so many questions and I wanted to know so many things. It was not a tick box. I didn't want to tick a box saying, "Oh, I want to become a doctor." No, that was
PhD.
not. No, no, I was not seeking that at all. Which is why,
No, if you
when I
haven't, if you have done it, we wouldn't have found any work after PhD, because I have seen people, if that is that tick box wala target, if that is ticked, then their goal is done. Because I've heard many people saying that PhD is the beginning and not the ending. Like we have Arangetram, doing Arangetram, if it's a tick box, then I think, yeah, finishing Arangetram is the end of the life. But if you feel that it's the beginning, Arangetram, the meaning, literal meaning of Arangetram, then I think that's the beginning of a performance. So I think that is what I can find in your persona. So that's why I'm just asking all these questions to you. Please
Yes, so
don't
I
mind.
think you have to look at the research and presenting a paper in a different angle, and you have to look at performances in a different angle.
Okay.
Performance is an absolutely different zone, and research is an absolutely different zone. Because, and I find it very interesting because there are questions. People question you at that very, place. It's not that everybody's going to just clap and go away. No, that's not how it happens. People immediately come up with questions. They dig deeper. They ask. They try to confirm whether this really makes sense or not, or they try to question you. And that's a very interesting thing. And I really like that zone because academicians are open to it.
Yeah.
As dancers, we get very nervous or we get very phobic when the moment we find a critic criticizing you, or we getting a negative comment. But as a researcher, when you are in the role of a researcher, you want that to happen because that is going to ultimately enrich you. So I think that you have to look at dancers need to look at research in a different angle if they want to pursue research in that fashion.
That's so nice to talk about research with Dr. Parimal sir. Now going on to your performance angle, performing, with all these hurdles of working and schedules in the morning and all those things, you have been performing in one of the, some of the best ever festivals which are being organized all over. And I think, as you rightly mentioned in the beginning, that also depends on how well you get established also, and also opportunities which come by. But still, taking up the opportunities as a challenge is something which is very important, because if you think that you're settled as a faculty and you're doing as a researcher and I don't want to perform, it's still okay with Parimal, that it can happen, but still you're doing it. So that is something which is that is to be credited for. So what makes you go into that angle of being live in the performance angle also? Because we have seen many people who start doing research and they go to that mode of publication and research, publication and critic. Maximum they become art critics for different shows, and they stop performing most of the times. I don't know why. Maybe their productions, they do research productions, research demonstrations. Yes, they do it, but not the general performances. Like they don't perform Margam, they don't apply. I mean, they don't go for a festival. They're not being invited for a general performance. Only when there is a research presentation, they think of, okay, so and so doctor, call her for it. If there is on a performance, then we have a group of artists. Call this fellow, call that fellow, call this lady, call the other artist. We have these two sets of people. Though we all are dancers and come from the same fraternity, I think there is this small division of researchers and performers. But I think you're the one. There are very few people who do perform and also do active research in that way. So how do you balance it, and how do you see these performances in a new way after pursuing your PhD? And what kind of interesting things you get it? But your outlook obviously changes, isn't it, after you pursue such kind of a knowledge, and you're imparting such kind of a knowledge in a very profound manner, and in a very what we can say analytical way. So each performance will be a kind of a very different experience for you. So how do you put up that mode of performance?
I think the answer itself lies in my research. My research was not just about theorization. It was enriching the Bharatanatyam repertoire with the compositions for the male dancer.
Nayaka.
So it became a performance-oriented research, right? Because it has a template. It has a certain template of classifications and representative compositions. So ultimately, I have to use those compositions in my performance. So I think that's the key, which is that's the drive which is running in my mind, that I have to perform this ultimately, because then only I can prove that this research is really working. Otherwise, on paper, it's just okay. It's there on paper. I've proved it fine, but I have to perform it to prove it. that yes, this concept works, or such and such Nayaka, which doesn't exist in the text, but I have come up with in the new template, it works. So I think one thing which I've always been interested is, and I'm madly obsessed with, is new compositions. And even now, I am still learning Carnatic music from Gayatri Mami. I'm still undergoing study of Tamil Padams from Dr. Malati Agneshwaran. I'm still learning, trying to analyze Telugu Padams under Balakrishna Raghavan. So my search for content is always there. So I think the madness to know more content and to seek more content probably drives me towards performing too, because every time I plan my production, I don't try to repeat it. I have tried, which is again why I don't plan a production every year, because I know that I can't come up with something
New.
insightful every year. So it's mostly an alternate year that I come with some new production for which I have to work for 1.5 or 2 years to make sure that, okay, this is something which I would like to express.
True, it
So
takes
the
so
inner
much.
urge to express and the quest for new content drives my craving for performance.
That's so nice. So you mean to say the selection of research topics is also very important for researchers, so that they look at applicability of the research, and also bringing through something through performing arts, because performing arts is for performance. I think that is very nicely put by you and your work, saying that documentation and keeping it as a written document is a part of it, but getting it onto stage is, I think, the ultimate thing, because if a mechanical engineer starts doing research on some machine, the machine has to work at some point of time. So I think it's very well
And the
expressed.
models probably which I have seen also have been such. So Dr. Padma Subramaniam, my
Yes,
guru's guru, so she's also known for performance research.
correct.
My guru, Dr. Suchita Sapekar, from whom I did my master's, her thesis was also based on the synthesis of Hindustani classical music with Bharatanatyam, and what if we come up with a new repertoire, which she titles it as
Nritya
Nritya
Ganga,
Ganga. So I
is it?
think the models which were
Nritya
there in front of me were also performance-based research. So it is not possible for me to think anything else. Having said that, I have no issues with research which is not performative and which is more about theory, because ultimately I feel every person is a different being, and every person's temperament and aptitude is different. So every person would like to go for a different kind of research as per one's own thinking and aptitude. So it changes. I feel it changes for every person.
Yeah. So you just mentioned about your productions. So even for your productions, how do you get in your point, the quest of analysis and research, and make it more enriching compared to a performance which is not? So do you still collaborate with various different artists for getting a production done in a very rich manner? Or are you a little more equipped than before, you feel, in analyzing some parts of it, and you can manage it so that it becomes more of yours kind of a production? Because these days, even when we start doing a choreography, we go for one advice for jatis, one for lighting, one for the various different aspects of performances. We have kind of consultant sort of thing coming in and playing their role to make the performance rich. No doubt it will be a very successful performance, but it will be always a very huge collaborative work. But is over the years, have you been more efficient and more self sustaining in most of the aspects of these things?
Now, the challenge in living in a city like Pune is you don't have Carnatic musicians here. So just like probably in Chennai or in Bangalore, it is easy to immediately access a musician and say, hey, I would like to get this composed in this album, or I'd like to do this, or let me have this jati from this percussionist. So this is not kind of structure which we have grown up with in Pune, because we don't have accessibility to that, right? Okay, it will change now because of the digital accessibility. You could just have a collaboration on Skype or on any of these platforms and get it done. But the time period when I started learning and continued learning and experimenting with my productions, that was not the time where you could access musicians so easily, access third-party resources so easily, which is so easy to do now. So I think which is a very important point you asked, whether I go for the self-sustainability route, which is why I learned Tamil. What I realized during my masters, that if I have to access compositions of Tanja Quartet, or be it of in the context of Padams and Javadis, then I needed to know Tamil, because the only publications which were available during that time in Giri Trading and these stores on these compositions were all notated in Tamil. And
Tamil,
it was inevitable to access those. Otherwise, then you would just, depend on one particular musician whom you would be noting down the lyrics and trusting that those lyrics are correct and the meaning is correct. And that's quite a dicey game, isn't it? So I didn't want to do that. I was pretty sure that I was not going to do that, which is why I learned Tamil, so that I could access these compositions. I could understand what they mean in whatever limited capacity. I'm not saying that was a very easy route either, but in whatever capacity. So it threw open the doors to knowledge. Just knowing one regional language can, make the accessibility so interesting. And not just that, it also opened my doors to so many accents, so many phonetics, so many intonations in these regional languages, just like Marathi, even the other languages. Unfortunately, because I have been mostly out of Maharashtra, I have been able to listen to Gujarati, understand Gujarati, listen to Urdu, understand Urdu to a certain extent, listen to Bangla, can speak Bangla very well. So I think your overall perspective broadens a lot. That is one thing. But again, my whole, my whole point was that I should be able to write a script ultimately, because I think even while creating a production, it is not putting in pieces together and saying this is a concert. That is not the kind of performance I like to do. I always like to visualize a concept. I like to visualize a graph, be it an emotional graph, or is there a musical graph, or is there a graph of content? Which is why my course in television production works really well for me, because when I'm devising a production, it is that brain which is playing more rather than the brain of a dancer, because it is looking at through the perspective of a perceiver as to what is the insight which you would like to give, what would the audience identify with. So my first production itself was a highly experimental production, honestly speaking. It was based on the theme of gold, Swarna, and it was telling us abstract story of gold, from gold mines to ultimate depiction of gold into gold jewelry. So that's the whole trajectory which we followed. And while I was going through this narrative, I understood that just sticking to Bharatanatyam was not going to work, because when you're talking about gold in its raw form, you can't see Bharatanatyam in it. You will obviously see contemporary forms in it. So I think questioning of interrelationship of content and form happened from the very initial stage. But I think over a period of time, I have also realized that when it comes to classical dance forms, or specifically Bharatanatyam, you have to get into the habit of analyzing text, analyzing the Sahityam and its context, and probably how intelligent and discerning you are in the context of interpreting it. Because text creates a certain parameter, certain box within which those sancharis work. You can't just do any sanchari, right? There is a certain parameter which the text devises. And that I find very interesting when I'm looking at compositions. I find it very interesting to decide that parameter, okay, probably this works and this does not. And this is very interesting and enriching as a choreographer or even as a dancer, because that is challenging. You can go totally wrong, or you can just go on the right path. So I think the whole path is more from the angle of script writing for me. For me, to understand the whole script is very important of a production. To understand the angas and upangas of the script are very important. How are they connected, and make it as a full body that it comes out as a production. So for me, scripting is a very, very important deal. If I fail there, then it doesn't work. If I know that, yes, the graph is going perfectly, I know it will work. So scripting is the guide for me towards a good choreography. And of course, then once you have the structure in place, then identifying the idiom, identifying the form, identifying how you're going to explore the idiom. It happens, there is improvisation happening. Sometimes you're not really improvising, sometimes really you're sticking to improvisations. And those choices a choreographer, it's a choreographer's journey ultimately, is a journey of choices. And you have to
Okay.
make those choices, no doubt about it. But scripting is very, very essential for me. Yeah.
That's nice. Thank you so much for enriching all of us. I think today was a very profound discussion on a very rare topic of research in dance, because we didn't have many of them speaking about this. And a professional like you talking about it makes a lot of sense. And I think you've opened up a lot of avenues and questions in us, so that even when, because I think before even getting into research, I've heard people saying that you need to know the scope of the research and why are you doing it ultimately, and what is it going to contribute to. So I think your discussion past 1 hour, I think, threw a lot of light on applicability of your research and the topic selection maybe, and how involved you need to be in your research, which we could see from your words, how involved, because you need to be happy about what you're doing. If it's not for the sake of doing, for the targets or for your DRCs or for your any other accomplishment, seminar and submission of your thesis. So but that process need to be rejoiced and involved. How much you involve, probably, I think so much you grow, is what we learned from today's session. And thank you so much for accepting and being part of this Sankatha. Now, before ending it, we'll go to a small little bit of informal Parimal, just for the end it on a very light note, to know about you more. We know about the dancer Parimal, but to know about you, so we just will have some questions on those things, very casually, as a fast rapid fire kind of a thing.
Sure.
So I generally start with food. So which is your favorite food?
Favorite food is sabudana khichdi from Marathi cuisine.
Oh, that's nice. Even I like it. It's very yummy. What's that? Favorite place?
Got to be Pune. I can't help it.
Pune.
Pune is my karma bhumi, so I have to say it's Pune. Pune is a place which has made me understand so many things. So I have to give my salute to Pune for opening up the vision on so many levels. So I have to say Pune is my favorite place.
What quality is something which attracts you of a student? Generally, if we have any teacher, if we know that this teacher likes these kind of students, so if that is the niche, so what is the quality of a student which you generally like?
A student who can combine intelligence and artistry.
Oh, that's nice. Provided a situation that you get a question which you cannot answer, but you have to answer at that point of time, what is your route which you generally take? Do you confuse or do you convince?
I confuse.
Oh, great.
I confuse.
That requires a lot of skills again. Okay. So, whom do you think is your lifeline, apart from, for your general life to run? Okay, who are your lifelines?
Wow. My mother, my mother, my father, my brother, they are my lifelines. I only exist because of them. And of course, it is because of them that I could access these great gurus. So my gurus would be my second lifeline. So these two are the ones who I exist in the field of dance.
That's nice. Which is your favorite item of repertory in dance?
Composition, you mean? That's a tough question. That's a very tough question. You are really putting me in a fix now. Varnam.
No,
Varnam.
it can vary. Choice can vary according to
Varnam.
Varnam. I think that's a universal answer which we generally get from everybody. What is success for you?
Feeling content.
Oh, that's great. I think.
Feeling content.
And who's your role model? Models, many, if you have.
That's very difficult, because I would go in a very different way. The real experiences in the most unusual places are my role models, because they teach you so much. Yes, those life experiences become ultimately your role model.
That's so nice. I am talking. I know I'm talking to a very formal, complete man, I can say, in terms of dancing. But can you share one like light moment, funny moment during your performance? Some light moments which happened backstage or on stage or something. We still
Okay, so this is yes, I have mentioned this for the Malaysia performance. I remember my costume was coming off. And I had no idea because I had to do a backflip for it, and I was wondering that what am I exactly going to do in this place. So I re-choreographed the movements in such a way that I made sure that I won't face any social embarrassment there. And once the composition was over, I ran to the wings, fixed it nicely, and then I was good to go. But those 10 minutes were like my litmus test, that you come to Malaysia for a wonderful performance, you're starting the composition and you say, how come this costume is really giving you trouble that day? So that was a really scary experience, which I don't want to go through ever again.
Ever again. That's nice. Thanks for sharing that. And ultimately, what is your view on what is dance?
That's a very, very, very tough question, isn't it? Every time, because every year when I ask this question to myself, I get multiple meanings.
Yes.
I think dance is something which will be what you want it to be. That's the simplest answer. It is something which will be what you want it to be.
Yeah, because I think people like you and most of us who are growing with dance we will share very different kind of life experiences at different points of our time. So maybe this is a very transitory thing, but the answer which you gave was very interesting. That how we can look for dance. Thank you so much, Parimal, for being part of Sankatha. And as you rightly said, I didn't even realize that this could have been a good documentation. And if it is for some help for anybody, I think it will be all credits to you all. Great personalities who have been sharing your thoughts over there and inspiring everybody during these tough times. So I think the whole intention is to inspire everybody and keep them intact to the art form, so that at least once things are fine, so we get a nice sweep to go higher and higher. And we wish
I would like to
you.
say something.
Sure.
I would also like to thank Sagarji and this great team of Shubhashiji, who was also there to introduce, and this platform for in this pandemic times. I think it's very important that the new generation gets to interact with so many of the dancers from different areas and different geographical areas, because that is important, that today's generation, which is unfortunately facing the pandemic in such a way that they might be thinking whether to take dance as a career or not. So I think your vehicle is acting as a very good motivational platform for them, to giving them hope that they can make their dreams happen. So once again, thank you, Sagarji, for bringing me here and sharing my thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow with another person and another different kind of an aspect explored during the Sankatha. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Parimalji.